Welcome to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we pick a great from Hollywood legend and pick 5 films that best describe why this person is one of the greats. My name is Austin Luger.
My name is Ray Martindale.
And welcome to our very first episode where we're covering Billy Wilder, the wonderful director, the German immigrant who came to Hollywood and really shook things up.
He made some good movies.
He's a good one. I like him. The 5 films we're going to cover for him in the next 5 weeks are Ninotchka, Sunset Blvd, Ace in the Hole, Some Like It Hot, and The Apartment. And we're starting off today on episode 6 with Ninotchka, a film he did not direct. That was actually Ernst Lubitsch, but a film that he was screenwriter for.
Mm-hmm. And I think the best way to lead... This movie was made in 1939, so I think the best way to lead off with people who may not have seen this movie or are not as familiar with this movie as Billy Wilder's works is to just give... It's a simple film, so just give it a brief synopsis about it. So this is set in France, 1939. You have the Russian revolutions happened here. We're talking V.I. Lenin and a socialist revolution. They have procured some gems from a Russian duchess who is now living in France, and now they're trying to sell them to the French people to make money off them. Well, the Duchess knows that this sale is going on and those are her old diamonds, and she's now living in a capitalist society in France, so she's trying to get them back. So you have the Russians that are sort of the fish out of water from a socialist society in a very, very capitalist France, and then you have this old Russian Duchess who's enjoying the pleasures of capitalism, and her steward, which is a guy named Leon, Count Leon, I'm not even going to attempt the last name, played by Merlin Douglas, who is...
Melvin.
I'm sorry?
Melvin.
Melvin Douglas, yes, who ends up falling in love with Merlin.
It's Merlin.
Merlin. I just realized, what did I say? Oh, I said Merlin.
Right.
Melvin Douglas, who ends up falling in love with the title character, Ninotchka, who is one of the Bolsheviks from Russia. So it's the contrast between socialism and capitalism. This is a very pro-capitalist movie, I think it's safe to say. Or at the very least, a rejection of socialism in at this time period in Russia. And then there's a love story that ends up developing in a love triangle because the Duchess from Russia is in love with Leon as well, who falls in love with the Greta Garbo character, who is the title character. So, wow. That was more of a mouthful than I thought it would be.
Well, I was impressed. It's such a complicated plot, and it rather is introduced very smoothly, which is why this is one of our 5, because Billy Wilder is a screenwriter, and he's going to be a screenwriter for a couple more of the films we're going to cover, but he's so brilliant with structure, and also he's so brilliant with dialogue, and we mentioned that this is a comedy.
Yeah, it was something that took me by surprise. This is an old picture. We're talking 1939, and films from around the world at this time, there were some good ones out there, but nothing was quite as sophisticated as an American feature, which this is. But it was such good dialogue. This is a very entertaining film. I mean, you know, how old the picture is going to put off some people this day and age, but ultimately, I think they'll find it unfounded after the first 5-10 minutes with the movie. I mean, right?
Absolutely. It's incredible in that way. And I want to start our discussion with the screenplay by something you said about how, you know, this is a rejection of Russian socialism. And it is in many ways. This film could even be called The Corruption of Ninotchka. Yeah. Because she is... So this is Greta Garbo in her very first comedy, and really her only comedy of note.
She didn't have a very long career.
No, she had, you know... At this point, a couple years prior was the Best Picture winner Grand Hotel, where she famously said, "I want to be alone." Mm-hmm. And she was always kind of that stern, dramatic, very, very well done actress, one of the most respected at the time. And now she's going to be in an Ernst Lubitsch film, which at this point had a reputation for the past 10 years of being very silly, very light, and before the code hit, very sexual. And this film was even billed as Garbo Laughs. So she enters this film playing almost a commentary on her prior roles as the very stone-faced Ninotchka. Her full name is Nina Ivanovna. Why even try this? Well, no, terrible idea.
I saw you smile before you started, but talk more about the corruption of Ninotchka, right?
Because she comes in here and she because you have the trio of comrades who are there to sell the jewels, and they are immediately taken away by Western and Paris culture.
Yeah.
They immediately are astounded by even just the revolving door. The opening scene.
The revolving door they love. They rent the biggest suite you could possibly get. They're really enjoying capitalistic society here. Right?
And they're just astounded what could be done. And Ninotchka, when she first arrives, she is immediately criticizing it all. Mm-hmm. She won't see the Eiffel Tower for the sake of structural integrity.
Yeah, and I think there's empathy there that works for today. I mean, regardless of where you fall on a political spectrum, she's talking about socialism in the idea that we all deserve equal parts, right? This is all our land, and this is all listen. However, it may have the theory versus the practice of socialism, obviously two very different things,
right?
But she doesn't come off as preachy so much as something that she just earnestly believes, right?
And she's dedicated to the cause, and she's dedicated in a way that she's confident about its future. Mm-hmm. So when she meets the Count Leon...
Which we have context for.
We do.
Which is interesting, too. But it's... go ahead. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, absolutely. You have Count Leon, who is the most capitalistic character in the movie. He is dating the Duchess just for the sake of more wealth.
He loves being rich.
And there's an interesting thing that Wilder and his screenwriting partner, Charles Brackett, does, which is to attribute capitalism with beauty. And showing that you can have extravagance for the sake of betterment of the soul. So you have the Eiffel Tower not only for the number of steps it has, and that's an impressive thing architecturally, but it's something that is beautiful in the skyline of Paris.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is you look out across... She's obviously, in rejection of capitalism, sees her as sort of this evil type of... just say no type of thing. Some sort of evil, like something that's trying to dissuade you or pull you in a certain direction the polar opposite, as the antithesis of what she believes. But you can't help but admire the beauty of it,
right?
When you look at Paris,
and that structural use of love in terms of capitalism is also done with the way the characters are connecting, because on their first night together, they happen to be on the street where she is looking for the Eiffel Tower and he guides her with the map. Mm-hmm. But that night, she is ready to have sex with him just for the sake of, like, the most logical, unemotional thing of, like, I am attracted to you, you're attracted to me, this makes sense logically, this is what we should do.
But he wants to believe in love. He wants to convince her that... I mean, he does have a love at first sight thing, which may not... be appealed to audience today as it may have appealed back then, as far as like chivalry is dead and feminism. but
it's a weird thing because he almost loves her as a dare to himself.
Yeah,
I can charm her. I'm that charming.
Yeah, he enjoys trying to impress her with the capitalism. It's the personification of the sixth grade guy sort of. Finding it titillating to pull the girl's bra strap and slap it back, right? He knows he's not getting in trouble for it, and it's fun. It's flirting. Right. At the same time, it's titillating. That's kind of what he's doing here.
A bit, yeah. He's evoking her.
Without the angst of that. Like, it's not... Yeah, no. He's very sweet. But
he's very sweet, and there's no question about that. He's trying to give her a great night the entire time, and that ends once she realizes that he is representing the Duchess in the exchange of the jewels.
Yes.
So then she is denying her chemical interest in him and stops it immediately.
And it is, and to her, it is a chemical interest.
Only.
She says, okay, if you want to make love, then he says, do you love me? And she says, I mean, I love you. Like, I'm attracted to you, you're attracted to me, so we should sleep together.
Right. It's the only love there is.
Exactly.
At this point. And so... then once that happens, he's still... I think at this point
She hasn't smiled yet.
No.
You should add that. She hasn't not smiled yet in the whole film, which ends up being comedy gold.
Yeah.
Right?
It's brilliant, because she gets great, amazing lines, but she's performing them as if they were a Shakespeare tragedy. Mm-hmm. And that evokes his sense of challenge, too. Although I still want to make sure this jewel purchase goes well for me, because I get more money, and my girlfriend gets more money. He still finds her he needs to make her laugh. He knows himself to be a funny man and a charming man, and he just needs to make this happen. So as we're going to get into a bit more spoiler territory. This is now getting to about the halfway point of the film. Mm-hmm. He is so desperate to make her laugh, and once that's finally achieved, the joke is on him in many ways. And then we're having the corruption of Ninotchka, where once that wall is just
she finally laughs.
Barely broken, and she laughs, Greta Garbo laughs, then we can have her buying the dumb hat in France.
Yeah, so she sees a hat in France, and being the socialist she is, she sees the hat, and to her, a hat should only exist for warmth as clothing.
Right.
And she sees a fashionable hat in France, and she cannot imagine why a woman would wear that hat because there's no practicality in it, right? So in the scene we're talking about where she laughs, Leon tells 3 jokes to her, none of which work, and then he sits on his chair and the chair breaks. He falls over. It slaps every, and then she laughs. Right? She finally smiles and laughs, and she laughs hard. And by the way, as an audience member, you sigh. You're like, finally, you're happy this is broken. And then later, she does admit that she actually found all of the jokes funny, which leads into more of the sort of corruption of Ninotchka, right?
Exactly. And I think what's really interesting is the film is so well structured to kind of have the meeting up of them, she learns from him, but the section where he learns from her is never promoting Russian activities, but it's a recognition of class in general. Mm-hmm. She is always about the working man and is always very aware of because so many of the scenes are set in a hotel. She's very aware of the waiters there, the bellhops, everyone there, and recognizing that you deserve this room as much as I deserve this room.
Yeah, he makes a comment. He kind of stalks her a little bit. He follows her to this diner, and she says to him, "Why are you here?" And he says, "Oh, I always come here." And she goes, "No, you don't." He's like, "How do you know that?" And she goes, "Because this is a place where working men eat."
Right. This isn't a glamorous Paris restaurant. This is just a simple diner where you can have the exact number of calories you need.
So she's not naive or she's not dim-witted in any respect. She's, in a lot of ways, more clever than Leon is, in more credit, and probably more intelligent than he probably gave her credit for to start with, which is part of why the attraction starts to form.
Yes.
Right?
And so as they both learn from each other, you see him become more aware of what it takes to actually be productive in society, where he has mooched off society this entire time. Mm-hmm. That is an incredibly nuanced way to approach this romantic comedy. Mm-hmm. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I said, I want to bring up this now. I brought up feminism earlier. There's one thing I want to address with here, too. When I said that this was before sort of the rise of feminism in film, or at the very, this is 1939. This is a different era. This is also kind of works as a feminist feature, right?
Absolutely.
We're talking about a very strong woman here, a woman that falls in love, but it's earned. She's not silly. This isn't Guardians of the Galaxy where I'm beautiful, so I'm going to fall in love with the attractive guy. Mm-hmm. This is earned. And one specific instance is where she's constantly underestimated, and she always overachieves in what he thinks she's going to do, right? So he takes the elevator up in the Eiffel Tower because she starts to walk up the steps, and he goes, it's like 600 steps. I'm going to take the elevator. Well, of course, he gets in the elevator and he gets to the top. Not only is she already at the top, she's smoking a cigarette already looking at the view.
Right.
So before we got too far ahead, I thought that really grounded her character. I feel like I got her there. And it wasn't more determination. She wasn't racing him. She just, this was climbing steps that's whatever. Whatever.
Right, and because she wanted to look at
not a wilted flower, you know what I mean?
She wanted to look at the achievements that were done. He wanted to get to the top. And the other main female character is, of course, the Duchess. And she has such an interesting role because she has more affection for Leon than Leon has for her. But, so when she is threatened by Ninotchka in a romantic way, she's also very threatened by Ninotchka in, you guys exiled me from Russia.
Yeah.
There is more going on there of the relationship between Ninotchka and the Duchess than just simple, we're going to fight over a man. That is almost the surface level to what is really a painful exile. Even though she's doing better now, she's still wants the Russian jewels, not just because she doesn't have any jewels, but she doesn't want Russia to claim them.
Yeah.
It's a painful experience that she doesn't want others to profit on.
Which probably would have been expounded on more if this movie was made 20 years later.
Sure. She is a very side character.
Yeah. She's a very side character. And what is probably a longer movie than it has any right to be, but all of it's great. I mean, all of it's great. What I mean is, but there are some parts that aren't even underdeveloped. They probably just would have been more fluffed out.
Sure.
And I think that role probably would have been more so because you probably would have made more of a thing out of socialism versus capitalism.
Right.
Which at the core, this is not what this movie. These are themes in this movie, but this is a love story.
Yes.
Right, between Leon and Ninotchka. So the hat.
The hat.
The hat we were talking about earlier in the film, the first time when you really start to see that this egg is being broken here is in a really touching scene. Ninotchka purchases the hat, which earlier in the film, first of all, 1939 style in France. You watching this film, you're going to think it's a goofy hat.
It's a terrible hat.
The hat looks stupid. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, the hat makes her look lovely because that's what it was. That was the intent and that was the style. So she does end up purchasing the hat because she looks pretty in it for the next time she goes out with Leon. And I found that uniquely touching in a perspective we don't normally get. Because in most movies, you would see the man do the touching thing. Mm-hmm. Where I'm going to do something and try to look pretty or not trying to look pretty. You see women do that all the time, but I'm going to be the one to do the grand romantic gesture. And I thought this was so sweet and so honest and so nice that she bought that hat just so she could look pretty.
Right.
Yeah, in a way that didn't feel too on the nose. It felt earned.
And when she wears an extremely nice dress for the ball, that is also very earned. It's not just a Cinderella moment of, here you go, here's the dress till midnight. This is her making an active choice to appreciate fashion as an art form, not just as clothing as a necessity. She embraces music and the radio, not just as information, but as a way to experience life in a new tone. It's just very gentle and wonderful.
It's sweet, yeah, and it's hard if you have a heart. It's hard as a man to not fall in love with Greta Garbo's.
She's incredible.
She's so wonderfully. First of all, she's a beautiful woman, which helps. But the character is just so sweet. And then you see this ballroom that you mentioned. Leon and her go out on a date at this ball, and the Duchess is also in attendance there. And this is Ninotchka, who she's exposed a bit here because now she's out in public wearing a beautiful gown. She looks great, and she's starting to. The corruption is starting to set in as far as the capitalist society and the finer things in life.
But also towards him, because he's been very self-aware about everything that's happening around him. Of like, who gets to enjoy it and who doesn't get to enjoy it.
Yeah, he kind of goes the other way a little bit. He tells his own butler, "Why don't you rebel against me?" Which is hilarious. And by the way, he's funny. I mean, the guy's great. Greta Garbo's great. This guy's great too. He's hilarious.
He's amazing.
And it helps. The dialogue helps to do that as well. But you see this wonderful scene where Ninotchka gets drunk. You know, she's drinking champagne. She's having a great time, and then they have a romantic night where they eventually leave together. But they do interact with the Duchess at this point.
Yeah. And as we get into now the last third of the film, you can cut off now if we've now enticed you and you want to get a TCM subscription. What's amazing is, so we now have this movie, and it is a Hollywood romantic comedy. Through and through, one of the best of this time. And once the sale is over, the Duchess is very smart. She does all the things on her own to make sure that the deal is over. And the deal is over in a way where Ninotchka goes on a plane tonight.
Yeah, she leaves to go back to Russia.
Yeah. And what's so amazing is I'm watching this film now for the second or third time, I can't remember, and I know they end up together. This is not a crazy anti-romantic comedy. This is going to happen, but you just can't figure out how it's going to happen. You know that's what the ending is, but the journey is so smart, and with the way it's respecting the plot and the characters, you're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
You don't know how Russia will allow this.
Exactly. So she goes to Russia, and he never gets to say goodbye to her. and he tries to follow her to Russia, and they won't grant him the visa into Russia. I mean, this is 1939. Okay, it's getting weird. You see, they're looking for Russians at one point in France, and they're following a group of people who shout, "Hail Hitler!" And they go, "That's not them."
Yep.
So it's a different time.
It's amazing why he's rejected, because we now have this whole, the veil is dropped now for his element of the class system. And he just assumes he can get everything. And the person executing the visas say, what can you do for Russia? Yeah. Why would we allow you access? You don't do anything.
Yeah.
And whereas that worked in the Grand Paris, that doesn't work here. They need someone who can actually do a function.
Yeah.
And he can't.
Yeah.
And he can't even convince him that he could.
Yeah, so he ends up devising a scheme which draws Ninotchka out of Russia and into another country where she meets up with the people that she traveled to Paris originally with, who have now opened up a restaurant. Again, kind of pro-capitalism going here. Open a restaurant. They're not going back to Russia.
No.
Okay. They've opened up a restaurant. She's supposed to, kick their butts into gear and bring them back to Russia. And when she gets there, Leon is there.
And it's charming.
It's
the most sweeping moment.
It's one of those movies I think would maybe it could work as a play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the dialogue is so strong. A lot of this movie is dialogue, and the camera doesn't have to move very much.
And Lubitsch really was one of those directors who... I like Lubitsch a lot, but he relied on the charm. He knew how to make a tone, and then all the elements kind of made the film even grander. He had some early films like The Love Parade, which are wonderful. But this one is very special because, whereas The Love Parade is also very witty, it doesn't have that Billy Wilder touch. And he co-wrote the film with two other people. One is writing partner, and one I think who did a final draft on it kind of thing. But you can tell, especially looking at Wilder's later career, which we're going to, the dialogue is so character-based. It's always through the lens of Ninotchka, through the lens of Leon, of not just the ciphers for capitalism, socialism. They are unique characters who feel lived.
If this is where you get in that old debate whenever you watch anything. The two most important tenets of drama are going to be characters and plot, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have stories. I'm going to say film because it exists in every media. You're going to have stories that are plot driven. You're going to have stories that are character driven. If this were plot driven, the plot would be about capitalist France or the West versus Soviet Russia. This is a love story. This is about Ninotchka and Leon.
Yeah,
and specifically Ninotchka and the journey that she goes on. She is our protagonist.
And my difficulty in watching lesser sitcoms are you would have characters say things that are out of their character for the sake of setting up a joke for someone else, and that was never the case here.
Well, you can't fall too in love with your characters. You have to always be as objective as possible when you're writing them, which I think Billy Wilder walks a tightrope perfectly here, because there's nothing here that comes off melodramatic or weird or every moment to moment in this film feels honest. And I'm saying that as someone who's watching the film 70 years after it came out.
Yeah.
And this is an era where you made money by making... this is the same year Gone with the Wind won Best Picture at the Academy Awards.
It beat this film for Best Picture.
It beat this film for Best Picture. So you see, and I'm not... No knock on Gone with the Wind. That's a movie we may end up doing one day, but and maybe the Vivian Lee section.
Sure.
I don't know, but it ends up it's a sweeping melodrama. No matter how you slice it, it's women are going to swoon to this in a way where people ever seem grounded and real in Ninotchka. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's no knock on Gone with the Wind because I think it's a good movie. It's just a different type of movie.
I was going to mention it at the end, but I have to mention it now. Yesterday, the Immortals covered Gone with the Wind. we used a randomizer for that, not for this, and that was just a weird week where we discovered 1939 films.
Yeah, and of the two right now in my head, I think Ninotchka is a better film.
Having watched both of them very recently, I will watch Ninotchka again more recently.
Yeah, and you're going to see that a lot. It's just, what I'm saying is, I'm just saying the way the times are.
Sure.
And I feel like Ninotchka is a movie that you can show someone, a modern audience member today. I think it's a lot more accessible.
It is.
Yeah.
Gone with the Wind is 4 hours
without
long.
sacrificing quality.
Right. And it beat this for Best Actress and Best Screenplay. It lost Best Story to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which goes to show this is one of the best years in cinema.
Yeah, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington has a pretty good story.
It's actually a rather good story.
Yeah.
But both those films have a very, just rewatching Gone with the Wind, that is the most Hollywood film ever made. I think, looking at Classic Age of Hollywood, it is everything about Hollywood, oddly compact in 4 hours.
Yeah, oddly. Yeah.
Oddly.
Yeah.
Whereas Lubitsch was also a German immigrant. Wilder was as well.
We should say he's the director of the film.
Lubitsch is, yeah. And Lubitsch was very worried about working with Germans. They didn't want to be a guy just known as that.
Yeah.
So it was actually a bit hard for Wilder and Charles Brackett to get this job, but it ended up working out extremely well because this was a huge hit for all of their careers and would let Wilder go on to direct his own movies.
Yeah, and this, I'm not ashamed to admit, and maybe I should be, is not a film that I had seen.
Yeah.
Prior to doing this podcast. I'd not seen the film. I wasn't even familiar with the film.
It's kind of underseen nowadays because Billy Wilder's canon shines so brightly for 2 Best Picture winners, one of the greatest comedies of all time, according to the AFI and everything.
I love Some Like It Hot.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
and we're gonna
talk
praise the hell out of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fantastic film, and Sunset Boulevard too.
Yeah.
Which, that's one of those films you can argue is the best movie ever made.
Yeah.
So
and lost by a hair to the Academy Awards to All About Eve, another one of the greatest films.
we should just admit now, Academy Awards are going to be brought up a lot. They just are.
Yeah, and we're not even covering one of his best pictures because he also made The Lost Weekend, which won in the 40s. That could be Billy Wilder Part 2 when we cover him because he is that freaking good, and I just love. He never. I could be totally wrong here, but he never wrote a screenplay by himself. He always knew the best collaborators to work with, and
just kind of like Kubrick in that regard too. Because Kubrick when we're talking about directors, and I know he didn't direct this film, but directors that write their screenplays as well,
right?
Like it happening a lot. Kubrick, he writes 2001 on his 2001: Space Odyssey. He's collaborating with Arthur C. Clarke. Okay,
the author of the book.
Yes, well, in the book, but the movie predates the book.
Right.
So that's an important distinction, I think, too. Mm-hmm. But that certainly helps.
So it's always important that I think Wilder knew story and characters so well, and which is why I want to start with this film. Even though we could easily do a Take 5 on Lubitsch, this to me almost is because Wilder made a couple more screenplays before he kind of became big. I'm off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure he co-wrote Ball of Fire, which is a very charming film about academics.
Well, he's a Renaissance man. I mean, you're getting. I mean, I think it's refreshing to just see a movie that he co-wrote a screenplay for.
Yeah.
Because you sort of the first one chronologically, you sort of see where he goes from here.
Yeah.
And that's no knock on Ninotchka because I think it's a great film. Mm-hmm. But the credit I feel like is probably more historically shared than Some Like It Hot or certainly Sunset Boulevard.
Greta Garbo is people think Ninotchka, they think Greta Garbo.
Yeah.
And then probably Lubitsch and then Wilder.
Yeah, I think that's probably that's
how it's historically seen. But I kind of see them all as triumphs in this film, and also Melvin Douglas.
Yeah, and if you're going through your canon of great old movies or great old actors or actresses that you want to watch, this would be one for Greta Garbo for the books.
Absolutely,
because she's great in this film. She's and I'm not putting her in a box and saying she's just so sweet in this film, but there's an earnest generosity and the character is very smart, but she's just she's childlike. But I don't mean that as naive because she's wet beyond her ears. You know what I mean? It's
more fish out of water, as you mentioned to the trio of comrades.
Yeah.
Whereas they're seen as silly, she's seen as an expert in a different field now in Paris.
It's just such a nuanced performance, and it's not something that you get often, I think, with those. And I mean, listen, I love the old black and whites, but nuanced characters are not something that. I mean, you're going to deal with a lot of archetypes when you go back.
Sure,
right?
Of course.
But fantastic performance, fantastic movie. 4-star movie. 4-star movie.
Yeah, it's incredible, and if we have so many Hollywood comedies that are so overly structured in the 3-act just structure of it all, where it is like, okay, at this minute this will happen, this minute this will happen. This is a very brilliant 3-act structure that is seamless, and even if you've noticed the 3-act structure of today's cinema, you won't even know this is happening, because that's how beautifully made this movie is.
Yeah, and I would say of all the movies that we've covered, this is the most watchable film.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt. This is a good nightlight.
Yeah. So this is Ninotchka, directed by Ernst Lubitsch and co-written by our man, Billy Wilder.
My man and your man.
Our man for the next month and a week.
Man.
He's the man.
He is the man. Watch Ninotchka. It's a great film, and I want to say before we close here, as someone who came to the film for the first time, in walking away, I mean, obviously I'm going to view any movies that there's going to be a few that do, but when they do crop up, they're films that I haven't seen before. Going in with an open mind, this is a movie that I think that transcends the years. Certainly, it came out, and also, it's a generational thing. Like, I mean, I'm 29 years old. I enjoyed the film. I think people younger than me, film lovers, can enjoy the film, or people that aren't, and people above me, everyone, okay?
Yeah.
If for some reason a family member hasn't seen the film, you guys want to sit down and watch a movie together, you haven't seen it in a while, Ninotchka is a good gather around the fire, watch a good movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would close with that.
Okay. Where else can they find us?
Well, they can find me at Constant Diversion. That's my YouTube channel where I apply the same critical analysis that I am applying here to video games. And that's my own separate channel.
Do you have a video you're working on?
Yeah, well, it's going to be Uncharted.
Yeah.
That's the next one. I'm working on the Uncharted games. I'm going to do mild reviews on Uncharted 1 through 3, and then Uncharted 4 for sort of the big 9-10 minute review or whatever. Where can they find the podcast?
You can find the podcast along with this one at theartimmortal.com. My other podcast is called The Immortals, where, like I mentioned yesterday, if you're listening to this the day it came out, we reviewed Gone with the Wind as one of the 1001 movies you must see before you die. We also reviewed one of the 1001 albums, foods, songs, children's books, and TV shows that you must see before you die as part of our fun little gimmick. And you can find both those at theartimmortal.com, where you can leave comments for us. You can also email us at letstake5@theartimmortal.com. And you can follow us on Twitter at TheImmortalsPod, where we'll give updates on both podcasts.
Phew, that is a mouthful.
I say immortal so many times.
Should be used to saying it by now.
I know, it's a very common word. And our next Billy Wilder film is Sunset Boulevard.
It's one of the greatest movies ever made.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, tune in.
We're going to praise the hell out of it.
Yeah, yes, it's the spoiler alert for the podcast. Yeah. No holding back here. This is one of those movies.
So if you haven't seen it, catch it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, as we close out, I'm Austin Luger.
I'm Eric Martindale.
Thank you all for listening.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Can I be of any assistance to you?
You might hold this for me.
I'd love to.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We are facing north, aren't we?
Facing north? Well, now, I'd hate to commit myself without my compass. Pardon me, are you an explorer?
No, I'm looking for the Eiffel Tower.
Good heavens, is that thing lost again? Are you interested in a view?
I'm interested in the Eiffel Tower from a technical standpoint.
Technical? No, I'm afraid I couldn't be of much help from that angle. You see, a Parisian only goes to the tower in moments of despair to jump off.
How long does it take a man to land?
Now, isn't that too bad? The last time I jumped, I forgot to time it. Let me see now, the Eiffel Tower. Your finger, please.
Why do you need my finger?
It's bad manners to point with your own. There, the Eiffel Tower.
And where are we?
Where are we? Now, let me see, where are we? Here we are. There you are, and here am I. Feel it?
I'm interested only in the shortest distance between these 2 points. Must you flirt?
Well, I don't have to, but I find it natural.
Suppress it.